Welcome back to the Edge Zone podcast and the continuation of our contributor series. Tonight we're introducing Micah. Sports has always been his escape, and betting became his way to turn that passion into profit. By college, he was already winning consistently, long before he knew about closing line value. 4 years later, he's originating in football and basketball, building projection models with standard deviation analytics to map out outcomes and beat the close consistently and with epic precision. His teammates once named him Micah-2000 like a supercomputer, and after tonight, you'll see why that name still sticks.
Computer club.
Oh boy.
So the object here is to win.
No dough, no show.
Sounds to me like you guys are a couple of bookies.
Show me the money.
Hey, what's up, guys? I'm Shane, better known as the Arbologist, joined as always by the founder of Edge Zone, Nick, better known as the Arbfather. What's up, brother?
How's it going, guys? Wicked pumped to be here yet again. I think we've had a great, 3 or 4 interviews so far, but I think this guest is pretty special, man. I've talked to this guy on the phone a couple times, and just by listening to him, and I'm sure you guys will think the same exact thing. I mean, this guy is a ball of knowledge, and it's mostly wrapped around college football, which is about to start in a few days. So this is going to be an awesome episode.
Yeah, dude, better known as Micah-2000, as we found out from the intro. We might actually, officially dub you that this episode, brother. I dig it. I told you we were going to come up with a nickname. You gave it to me. Reluctantly, it just came out in your intro, brother. I dig it. We're going to keep with that supercomputer, nickname, man. Micah, welcome to the show, brother.
Thank you guys for having me. I'm really excited to be joining this crew. I got a breadth of knowledge, as you guys, I appreciate for running me into it with that. Micah-2000, wow, that is a high bar for a nickname that I'm going to try to live up to, and I hope that I'm able to share some actionable thoughts and information with everybody here so that we can all, climb on my back and win some money this season.
Hell yeah.
Before we get into too much detail about what you do and the value you're providing, I definitely want to just get ahead of letting everybody know you're going to be an exclusive contributor here at the Edge Zone. And sort of a little bit about your past. I know you did some work for Action Network. I know you've sort of, you're building your own projection models for football and basketball. Tell us about, sort of your upcoming in this business and how you went from casual to building structured models.
Yeah, so I started out in college, same way that I think a lot of people do in this industry, where they just kind of throw around 50 to $100 from here and there and see if their projections and predictions come true and through the fruition. But from there, I realized that I was a pretty actionable, consistent bettor and winner, that I had to take my game to the next level, and that's when I began originating. I actually reached out to a number of different bookmakers at different sites, and I ask them what they actually do to create their own numbers and how they're able to aggregate that data from a number of different hosts of information, and how I can add my own interests into it by finding different ways that I value numbers relative to the market that are able to be actionable ahead of time. That way we can get down the right amount of money based on the projected edge and ultimately beat the closing line by monstrous numbers sometimes, and create very profitable nets by which we can play back a number, we can arb a number, or if we just continue to steam right towards a projection of mine that I make a 50th percentile outcome, we're golden, because then we're coming right into that 50th percentile in a standard distribution bell curve, that we're going to be right in that area of the sweet spot where most of these different outcomes, they land within about 3 to 7 points in a football game from where I make these. And we're able to win long term because I have a system that is designed to make 50-50 into 55-45. And then I use a breadth of knowledge and access to information from some of the best. And honestly, the Sagarin ratings just came out less than a week ago, and that is the most trusted power rating system in college football. It's one of the easiest ways to forecast a line weeks, if not sometimes months in advance, because Jeff Sagarin himself was a former bookmaker who is the most trusted power rater in the entire game. That's something by which I base my knowledge off of, but I'm also somebody who takes data from plethora of different sites and uses API projection models that I've generated to make sure that we're able to be putting ourselves in a profitable and advantageous position to win both in the short term and the long term.
Ladies and gentlemen, Micah 2000.
I love it, dude. I love it. So, Micah, tell us a little bit here, like how much of, you don't have to give away any secret sauce, of course, right? But how much of your system is automated versus like, you kind of manually having to, go through things throughout the week?
Yeah, so a lot of it is automated. A lot of it, though, I will say when it comes to manual adjustments from week to week, is using a system that I like to call, it's basically an acronym that is WAIST, waste. Weather, it's going to be the first one, W, pretty straightforward. It also takes into account climate changes that these teams have to travel between. Like if you're saying a team that's coming from the Rocky Mountain West is traveling to Florida to take on a team playing at 100-degree humidity, that's something you manually have to change to your projection for that number. Next one's going to be A, which stands for athlete. Athlete advantage, roster depth. Do these teams have schematic advantages they can use to better their ability to win the trenches, win on the outside, create advantageous spots both on special teams, average starting field position, a number of different ways. We're able to get ahead of the market there. Pretty straightforward, is going to be injuries, the health of the overall roster, how are they in the two deep, and let's face it, a lot of these teams we do have to handicap special teams as well as backup quarterbacks and how they're able to play. Like looking ahead of the season, how good is your team's backup quarterback? If the drop off in power rating from your starter to your backup is 7 points or more, your team is not a national championship worthy team. S is going to be scheme. That's going to be coaching advantages. And how we're able to actionate that into the projection models is simply based off of how well these teams do relative to expectation, both in a down to down efficiency as well as an explosiveness standpoint. So we want to be efficient and explosive. And the teams that are able to combine those two together into actionable ways that we can get down the right amount of money, we're able to be ahead there. And then the last one is going to be T. It's just going to be for travel. It also takes into account rest advantages versus disadvantages. When you handicap an entire season or multi-week handicapping, which I'll get into later, you need to look at the spots by which you're actually going to back a team. Simply based off of numbers cannot necessarily account for the spot by which a team is going to be playing. If a team is going to be playing 4 consecutive games against top 10 to 15 teams, which the Florida Gators, spoiler alert, are going to be doing in the middle portion of the season, the travel and the pure rest disadvantage that those teams are going to have versus other teams that are coming off of buys with 2 weeks to prepare for an offense that is largely automated off of zone read and deep shots, the amount of different ways that team can put itself in a position to succeed is just far fewer, and it's something that we want to buy into. So just to recap, WAIST, weather, athlete, injuries, scheme, and travel.
Yeah, that's a lot of metrics there, and it goes to show why you've been so successful and precise with some of these, because the amount of work you're putting into this and originating on your own is obviously working. Um, Go through the biggest challenge that you've had in learning how to project these outcomes. Like as you were building this, some of the growing pains as you developed what you have now, which is this precise method.
Yeah, I know it's sort of not necessarily a cop out, but it's borrowing a quote from somebody of the one Michael Jeffrey Jordan, where you're saying, like, I've never lost. I either win or I learn. So I'm somebody that has a football betting manifesto by which they are rules and guidelines I have learned throughout the times where I've had ups and downs that have necessarily put me behind the eight ball and allowed me to basically see the other side. It's one of the reasons why when I like to preview games, I like to also look at the other reasons why somebody would bet the other side, and I will present the case for why somebody else would bet the other side and why I think that is the wrong side to be on, so that I'm able to take in a plethora of different knowledge and ultimately be somebody that's able to be a winner at the end of the day, because I haven't always been a winner, but the biggest hurdle that I had to get over was understanding you're not going to win every day. And ultimately, if you just focus on getting 1% better every day, by the end of the season, your pockets are going to be full and everybody has a smile on their face.
Tell me about your previous season's results in units gained, and then also talk to me about how you determine the right bet amount for what your model projects.
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm verified over the last 2 seasons, and the third season ago, I wasn't necessarily being tracked quite as closely, but I finished up at minimum 25 units each of the last 3 seasons in college football. And how I'm able, and by the way, I'm risking about 20 to 25 units per week. So the ROI isn't necessarily quite as extensive, but it's something where I have an edge. It's an actionable edge, and in order to see the ROI, you have to bet it continuously. Then at the end of the day, the drinks pay for themselves. To quote, I'm so sorry that I'm forgetting their name, but if somebody understands where that comes from, they'll get this. Yeah, the drinks pay for themselves, basically. But yeah, to answer your question about how you're able to determine how much you get down, this is strictly based off of the percent edge relative to the market using a couple of different things: standard deviation, normal distribution, and then handicapping, WAIST, that I was going through. It's why you're able to go through and basically use all of these different metrics as a checklist by which you're able to put an exact percentage of your bet versus the market. And then from there, you're able to forecast where this market is actually going to move. It's why, say, for example, Syracuse, Tennessee, under 55.5 in week one. Spoiler alert, this is my biggest bet of the entire week.
Okay.
I nuked the under 55.5. My numbers make this 49.5. That's almost a touchdown of value, just strictly based off of numbers. When we're talking about totals in the 55 to 48 category, which is generally within one standard deviation of the most common outcomes, you basically put yourself at roughly a 16% edge to nail that top number. And also understanding it's not necessarily purely numbers based. These are likely outcomes. 55 is the most common total in college football, followed closely by 51. Then the next three in no particular order are 62, 59, and 48. If you're able to create a net by which you can have an under and an over with more directional risk to the under, strictly because my projection still projects this south of where the current number is, you're going to have a net by which the two most common outcomes land right in between them, and you're walking away a happy man at the end of the day.
Micah, tell us a little bit, kind of what your weekly routine looks like, right? Like, let's just say it's Saturday night, all the games just ended. I know you mentioned sometimes you might be already looking ahead week to week and stuff like that, but, kind of just walk us through, what you're diving into and when you're diving into it.
Yeah, absolutely. So, from a weekly routine during a football season, Saturdays, you're going to be watching the games, but I always keep a screen open of a live odds board for games happening later in the day, as well as games happening in the future weeks. And one of the things that you're watching for during those games, many of the numbers are already up for the following week at different various sites. It might not necessarily be a recreational book, but it could be a sharp or an offshore, and you are watching those games to try and project power rating adjustments based on injuries, scheme, travel, and how these teams are performing relative to expectation. So if a team, say for example, a Penn State, where I project them, spoiler alert, a double-digit favorite in 8 of their 12 games this season, if during those 8 games they are not just running over teams, their power rating adjustment is going to be rather significant. And it's something you can buy into in the later weeks because you can basically take a look ahead line of them when they host Oregon in about a month. They are currently laying about 5.5 out there. If that's something that they are legitimately struggling with right now, you can get down on Oregon because Oregon is actually a team that matches up really well in the trenches and has maybe the most explosive player in the sport that we just haven't seen yet in Decory and Moore that matches up well with the Penn State secondary. So a number like a 5.5 multiple weeks in advance may come down to about 3.5 by the time we actually look at that game looking ahead. So there are things that you have to watch for, most specifically, are these teams executing their strengths more so than overcoming their weaknesses. Because let's face it, these teams, when the top teams, I should say, when they're playing FCS or far lesser FBS teams, and they're laying 35, 40, sometimes even 45 points, the games are normally over by halftime. So you need to watch for things like how are they tackling? Are they gaining 6+ yards on first down carries? Are they being 100%, quite frankly, in the red zone? Or are they settling for field goals, which for these teams with that amount of drastic athletic advantage is just inexcusable. So you have to watch for things that I would say, how well are you punching with your best and how well are you compensating for your weakest? Because we know this throughout the football season. The team is never as good as their best day and they're never as bad as their worst day. So you have to shift what their 50th percentile outcome is based on how well they are doing the things that they do well at and they project to be good at. And the other things are they have a well-known weakness. Are they compensating for it in some way, or are they just brushing it under the rug because they don't have to work on it at all when they're not playing a team that is worth much relative to them?
General curiosity here, right? You mentioned some different types of conferences and stuff like that, and I kind of just wanted to get your take. Are there any like specific conferences that you pay more attention to, less attention to? Are there any conferences out there or teams out there that you think maybe like the books don't pay as much attention to or anything like that?
Yeah, I mean, quite simply put, I would say that I'm also like the books and like most other college football fans because at the end of the day, I am a fan, but I'm also a bettor and I care about winning long term. Spoiler alert, Texas, Ohio State, week one. I was actually a little bit bummed when the AP poll came out and it said that it was going to be number one versus number three. I had been running up and down the streets all summer saying, I'm so excited we get the first game of the century ever in week one when I thought it was going to be number one versus number two at the shoe. But yeah, that game is going to be on the biggest screen that I have. But the books don't necessarily price G5 games as closely because, another spoiler alert here, most bookmakers do not price the entire board correctly. They price the sharpest games that are going to take on the largest amount of action, like a Texas Ohio State, like LSU Clemson, and Miami Notre Dame as well. We have three different top 10 matchups in week one. Those games, as a result, are going to be priced more correctly because they're going to be taking in liquidity from literally everywhere. I mean, you'll have people who don't even bet on sports signing up with those first time bonuses at every different rec book just so they can have money on those games. Whereas if you're somebody that keeps numbers on all 136 teams in the FBS, I can get down advantage betting numbers on an FAU versus Maryland. Like, for example, the people in our Discord are probably feeling pretty good about themselves right now. And they got down to 15.5. That is now down to 14 at most shops. And I spoke with somebody a couple days ago who believes this thing is going to keep steaming underneath 14. So, like I said, the top games I also pay the closest attention to. But in terms of a betting power rating adjustment, the G5 is where the money is because, frankly, bookmakers are not able to price a 70 game board correctly. They're going to price their most amount of effort into about 10 different games that they know most people are going to watch. But then those other 60 games, that's where the money is. And that's honestly where I think I project the sharpest amount of edges sometimes.
Yeah, that makes total sense. And I don't envy your workload, dude. I just the amount of college games you have to go through to pull these numbers. Um, yeah, your load management must be insane. How do you approach, I'm going to ask this question. How do you approach sides and totals differently when building your numbers?
I wouldn't say that I necessarily prioritize one more than the other. I understand that it's pretty unlikely prior to bowl season that you would see a 7 point shift in a side. Like in bowl season, you can create 14 to 21 point middles like nothing. If you get down to minus 2.5, and then the team that was an underdog just decides to sit all of their guys, well, 2.5 just became 17.5, and now you can play that back on the other side for a massive net that you've casted to be ultra successful. But generally, I would say I put a smaller amount of effort into projecting sides, but I put a little bit more effort into projecting line movement for totals, because totals are something that's going to be not quite as bet on, frankly. I mean, your average $20 bettor at the bar is going to want to bet on the outcome of the game, not necessarily how many points are scored. And how many points are scored is something that's pretty easy to relatively accurately project. You're going to be projecting plays per minute, so tempo, how explosive are teams, how explosive versus methodical they are. When they score touchdowns, is it 5 play, 70-yard drives, or is it 12 play, 70-yard drives where they're huddling and they're converting on third downs? So you have a 7-minute drive versus a 2-minute drive, and other things like average starting field position. Are these teams, when they go on their touchdown drives, are they having to drive 80 plus yards? Or are these teams' defenses just so good that they are creating advantages in the middle of the field? You're getting takeaways that set up the offense to be very successful on short fields. So when it comes to projecting the actual spread for a game, that's something that I would say I put the most amount of effort in, because that's something that I take in knowledge from everywhere, versus a total is something where I have a generic total for every team, and then from there I'm able to manually adjust based on waste, remember, weather, athleticism, injuries, scheme, and travel. And then from there, you're able to put that into your other numbers of handicapping home environments by how strong they are. Is it a place that can't even fill out its student section like Miami? Or is it a Texas A&M on a Saturday night where you can't even hear the person standing right next to you? So these are all things that matter, but just to reiterate, I spend the most time generating the spread number, and this is something that I generate a week in advance, and then I'm able to plot and tweak based on a plethora of different factors to get the right number once those games are wrapped up, and assuming there are no like horrendous injuries that would completely change a team's power rating. But the totals are something that I'm able to generate more quickly. But the thing that I spend the more time on with totals is trying to forecast where they're going to move throughout the week.
The definition of supercomputer, brother. They gave you the right nickname. The amount of data that you're going through and projecting to pull these numbers out is truly amazing, man. And I'm for one glad that you're on our side, that you're with Edge Zone now, brother. Um, Talk to us about what you're going to be providing as a contributor in your channel.
So as I joined Edge Zone, all of the plays that I have posted on my Twitter for the last 2 years are now going to be exclusively a part of this Discord, of which I plan on putting money in everybody's pockets. I'm going to be doing live streams on Friday afternoons, live streaming and breaking down all the biggest games, talking about actionable angles, talking about things that I've played, key numbers that I'm looking for, where my power ratings are. The other thing is like where the power ratings have adjusted throughout the season. What would I have made the number if this game were played in week 1, but now it's week 8, and now this number has moved to here? And then the other thing is talking about the actual angles that I bet. And the last but not least would be talking about the ways that this bet loses and why others would bet the other side and why I believe that is not the right side to be on. So that's going to be live streams. That's going to be more of a preview-like episode for the coming weekend. Then generally on Tuesdays and in a follow-up as well as a look-ahead line. Oh, that's the other thing I forgot. In those live streams, I'm also going to be talking through a look-ahead play for the following week and why I believe the power rating shift is going to happen throughout the weekend, and that's what we call multi-week handicapping. You bet something in advance because the events that are going to transpire between now and then are ultimately going to make it so the line moves in your favor, and you're able to get that CLV and watch the returns come into your pockets. Then you have a wide net, potentially, if you wanted to play it back, Arbit, and a bunch of different other options. So live streams on Fridays. Tuesdays, I'm going to come out with a weekly newsletter of games that I'm not necessarily going to be able to get to on the live stream because ultimately we all got things to do. And those live streams are generally going to be more of a G5 focused, not live stream. Those newsletters are going to be a G5 focused newsletter because I'm going to take you through actionable angles, power rating shifts, as well as projected key numbers that the lines may seem to, by which Say, for example, you want to bet something, lean, or pass. So I'm going to take you through probably 5 to 10 different games of which I have already bet, or I'm looking at, or I'm going to pass. So bet, lean, pass for the lives or for the newsletter, and then live streams all the Vegas games.
Shane, I don't know about you, but I'm about to up my bet size, I think, for Micah's
Yeah,
points.
we might have started low. We had discussions today on how much we're going to be dropping on this initial week
That's
0, week
hilarious.
1 stuff, and yeah, we might have to raise it up. Micah, this is amazing, dude. We look so much forward to seeing what you're gonna do for the community, and what excites you the most about bringing these projections to the edge zone and really joining this, what we really want to drive as community, right? This one-stop shop where people can get, info from Salt, info from Micah, info from Alexis and Dan and us, and just this wealth of knowledge where people can come together. What excites you about being a part of that?
Not to cut you off either, I wanted to add a little bit extra onto Shane's question here too, Micah. Like, I would just love to know kind of what's your end goal? You know what I'm saying? Do you want to eventually be betting $20,000 units on all your plays and working for a group, or are you more into the content space of this type of stuff? Like, just to tack on to Shane's question, I'd love to know a little bit more about that.
I'll answer this in two parts. I'll take care of Shane's first. What I'm most excited about is honestly bringing smiles to people's faces, filling up their pockets, and making it so they can say at the end of the night, "Oh, next round's on me because I just won 6 units today." And then, yeah, when it comes to the point that you brought up, Nick, I ultimately want to be somebody who is in Vegas getting down massive units and being one of those sharps where when you see a line move, you're like, I wonder who moved that line. I would like to be that person ultimately. And I think that I'm more than capable of doing that. And this is a massive step forward. I really cannot say it enough. I really appreciate you guys giving me this opportunity. And I'm excited to share my wealth of information with everybody. And hopefully I can teach people lessons by which they can better read the board so that they can throw ideas at me. And ultimately, we're all people that are still learning here. I'm going to throw everything that I know at you, and I hope that maybe you can learn a few things. Then you can say, hey, Micah, I noticed this in terms of pattern recognition. This team ultimately, they opened up at 6.5 here. They grew to 7.5 from that matchup, and those teams are power rated relatively similar. So when they have this other team, Team Y, in 4 weeks, and if they open up 6.5, should we be getting down on them immediately as soon as it gets to 7.5? So those kinds of things we're going to absolutely dive into. I hope to educate everybody, but in the midst of everything, ultimately, it's about filling up those pockets, and I'm super excited for that.
Yeah, Nick, it's like when you're that scout that saw LeBron James for the first time.
Oh yeah, no, literally. I love it, dude. I love it. I think he's gonna be a massive mover. Gonna be, like you said, who moved that board, and everybody's just gonna be looking at
Micah
each
the
other and
Whale.
saying
Yeah.
Micah 2000, right? That's who fucking moved that number.
Well, dude, like I said, we totally look forward to it. As we wrap up, brother, we're always going to ask our new contributors to give one piece of advice when it comes to, being a data-driven bettor, and your advice to how they can succeed.
Yeah, I sort of closely mentioned this early in the program, but I'll touch on it more in depth here. Get 1% better every day. When you win, feel great about yourself, but understand that you may not necessarily have that same opportunity the following week, where if you jumped on a 2.5, it closed 4. Well, that number might open 4 now, and it's not necessarily an auto bet the next week. Whereas when you lose, understand that there's a learning opportunity. Why did I lose? What did I miss in my handicap? What were my models and projections missing that ultimately they just didn't account for? Then you make those small tweaks and you come back a better, because ultimately we're all still learning, but we're going to be winning in the midst of learning, which is really what we're all here for.
And I don't want to leave this out because I know we talked an absolute shitload about college football, but you also project basketball too. Give us a little bit of a rundown on that.
Absolutely. So I project the NBA more specifically, less so college basketball. College basketball is a lot. That's 350 plus teams to handicap, especially with the portal and NIL and everything happening in the off season. But I do handicap the NBA. I use a number of different websites. I love Shot Creator. I love Shot Quality. I also look at teams' luck ratings as they wax and wane throughout a season, as well as roster turnover in the off season, projected ups and downs within their conferences. And the NBA is far easier to win at when you're somebody that basically looks at a board and understands, okay, this number opens here, it closes here, and then also the pattern recognition of these are teams X take money early in the cycle, and teams Y take money late in the cycle. So if we're able to understand that in the long run, we can beat the closing line on sides and totals. And I will get into player props far more so in the NBA as well. So I'm very excited to bring actionable and winning strategies in the NBA. Like, spoiler alert, I've already bet it. I bet it 12-1. Right after they lost to the Thunder, I bet the Nuggets to win next year's championship. And that was before they made a bunch of different upgrades in their offseason. And now I feel great having a 7-1 in my pocket. So just little sneak preview of what I can bring.
Well, Micah getting ahead of everything, even futures, buddy.
Always, you have to. I mean, if you're serious about winning in this business, you have to treat it like it's something that you actually care about winning at. Ultimately, for me, when I went from somebody who was just honestly excited to have money on a game, which quite frankly, I don't even understand that in hindsight, to somebody who is excited about winning money on that game, it totally changed my world, and I'm hoping it can change yours as well.
Yeah, well, I mean, what Nick and I do is search for edges, man, and it looks like you're providing one, which is exactly why we're so excited to have you on board. And I mean, the core product that we're going to be giving out is going to be access to these contributors, to Salt, to Dan, to Micah, to us, like I mentioned before. All these ways that you can learn from each individuals, and even taking a consensus approach to this, right? Salt's going to be giving out NBA plays, Micah's going to be giving out NBA plays. When those things match together, that you have something really valuable.
It's funny that you mentioned that. When we were in agreement, and I actually tallied this in the NBA regular season last season, we would both throw out about 3 opening line plays right at opening, which would come out at about 7 p.m. Eastern, right before the first wave of games is starting for the following night. We would both throw out 3. I counted, and maybe the numbers are actually more so than I thought, but we actually went 9-2 on plays between plus 100 and minus 120 of agreements that we had when we got down at the same time. So when Salt and I are on the same side of something, it's generally the side you want to be on.
I would never disagree with that. Not from what I've seen. No chance. Yeah, it's just so exciting to see what we're going to be bringing out to everybody who's going to be a part of this. Nick, what else you got, man? We've had a good one here.
No, to be honest, I mean, that was more than enough, dude. That was a ton of information, ton of good information. And I know I will be bookmarking Micah's channel, turning on the notifications for everything that he posts, including those newsletters and his live streams every Friday afternoon. And yeah, I'm just super excited, man. And thank you, Micah, again for being a part of this, dude. And I hope we can do everything in our power to help you grow. And I'd make a very large wager that you will help us grow. So really appreciate you, bro, jumping on today.
Absolutely. Always my pleasure, guys. I'm excited to get into this.
Yeah, I could see a series with Micah-2000 here, man. He's got that much information to give.
I'm hoping to live up to the nickname. We got to get down to it. But we got minutes in, we got money to win, and ultimately, I'm going to be striving to live up to that nickname. It's a lot.
Yeah, I don't doubt it, man. I would bet on that any day. All right, guys. Well, we appreciate it. I appreciate you, Micah. As always, Nick, man, it's been a pleasure, and we'll see you next time. You just heard the detail, discipline, and precision of those projections, and that's exactly the kind of value Micah will bring exclusively to the Edge Zone. This is why Edge Zone was built, to give bettors access to real modeling, real analytics, and contributors who consistently beat the market. We're not just sharing picks, we're sharing the process, the edges, and the tools that create long-term profit. And here's the big news. The public launch of Edge Zone is just around the corner. Very soon, you'll have access to everything we've been building behind the scenes, from filtered plus EV bots and optimizers to our Edge Zone proprietary matrix models, and most exciting, direct access to our powerhouse lineup of contributors. Stay locked in, follow along, and get ready to join us on launch day, because the next era of sports betting is about to begin. and it starts right here in the Edge Zone.